Ladies and gentlemen, lend me your ears and your eyes. Diva Divine Light, live from Brooklyn, New York.
With no delaying for what you saying, yo. Silly with my 9 million with the dilly, yo. When I be on the mic, yes, I do my duty, yo. While I'm in the club, I be while in the studio. You don't wanna violate, nigga, really and truly, yo. My main thug nigga named Julio, he moody, yo. I'm a nigga that'll slap me with the toolie, yo. Bitch, nigga scared to death, act fruity, yo. Fuck that, nigga shorty, she a little cutie, yo. The way you shake it, nigga, wanna get all in the booty, yo. With no delaying for what you saying, yo.
Diva Divine Light.
Really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Good more than years with my class to see. Still $1 in a place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Good more than years with my class to see. Still $1 in a place to be. If you.
You're watching Diva, the Divine Light. A fun-loving, caring, passionate person who talks about sex, celebrity, and real-life issues, and even abuse. So hit that like button and make sure you share the show.
Really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Good more than years with my class to see. Still $1 in a place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Good more than years with my class to see. Still $1 in a place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Good more than years with my class to see. Still $1 in a place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Good more than years with my class to see. Still $1 in a place to be. If you.
Here comes the pitch, and it comes in wide. On the go.
Yo, 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 yo. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening for some. What's up, ladies in the building? Hey, let me say hello to my girl Diva Time. What's up, lady? Glad you could make it today. Hey, Miss Me, Miss Mo. What's up, mama? This is your area of expertise, lady girl. This should be a good one. Hey, Nicole. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sister girl. What's up, mama? T-Bam. What's up, my lady? What's up, baby? I'm glad you ladies are here. Yada dada. My boo-boo. What's up, sissy poo? What's up, mama? My yada dada. My lady, lady, I miss you, baby. I love you. What's up, mama? Glad you're here. Rocking with the truth. Always on time, always on point. What's up, mama love? Yes, ladies. Yes, please make sure you hit that like button on the way. It's only a few of you guys. I know it's early. It's, it's not a big thing. I'm not worried about the numbers. You guys are watching on the replay. It is what it is. But I absolutely want to throw out this information. I am subscribed to this app called Scribd. And I don't know if you guys understood what I said. Let me spell it out for y'all. It's called Scribd. 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 And it's an app where you pay $10 a month. Okay. And in this app, you have this giant library. I mean, it's so full of information. We're talking about documents. We're talking about audiobooks. We talk about regular read-along books, news articles. Let me tell you the categories. Let me go into the app itself. But this is a great app, guys. I recommend anyone who's into, learning and reading and music. This is a great app. Now, in this app, you can find ebooks, You can find audiobooks, magazines, podcasts, sheet music, documents, and snapshots. You go into the search, you search somebody or whatever it is you're searching for, you type in a title or whatever, it might just pop up if it's in this library. People download stuff to this app. You can actually upload documents and snapshots and sheet music and podcast episodes and magazine articles and audiobooks and ebooks. You can upload these things yourself and share it with the world. So I found a lot of things. One day, one of these days, I'm going to do the Pied Piper. Okay. Now, in this book called The Pied Piper, it's the story of Laura. Laura is a wife, and she is the wife to the Pied Piper. And it's called, the title of the story is The Pied Piper, Laura's Story, the Pedophile's Wife. It was a very interesting read. I read some of it. I would love for us to do it together. So this is going to be one of my next books. We're going to kind of go through a little bit. And I also kind of want to finish up Confessions of a Sex Offender. We only had a few more chapters of that. So I did want to continue that book as well and then put it in my Divas book club in my playlist. So you guys, if you guys haven't checked out my playlist, I have a playlist, and I have a playlist of all R. Kelly videos, things that I found on YouTube. You guys can go through that as well. And I also have a playlist of me reading certain books. So you guys can go through that as well. All right. So these books are very interesting, and I got some documents and stuff like that. There's also another book that I found very interesting too. And it's called The Godfathers of Sex Abuse, Book 1. And it talks about Jeffrey Epstein. And it's pretty deep. It's good. It's a 5-hour read. So I'm trying to gather some books that aren't so long for us to read. But I got a lot of good books. That's like this one book that's about a 5-hour read, and it's called What We Talk About When We Talk About Rape. Okay. And I thought that was a good book as well. I read, got into a little bit of that as well. Also, there's another one called #Church2. And it talks about how purity culture upholds abuse. And how to find healing. So it talks about people who get abused in the church. So I got a lot of things, I want to talk about in between the whole R. Kelly thing, and try to get time to put these things in for you guys. So today I'm going to present to you guys a book from Scribd. Okay. And it is a dark psychology book. And it talks about, as you can see, my title, sadism, okay, threats, extortion, and blackmail. Now, this was very, very interesting, and I found it very, very informative and an easy breakdown, so that people can understand the whole theory and logic and the analysis of dark psychology and how sadism occurs and why they do things of this they do this acts and threats and blackmail and extortion. And you know that we're all in this R. Kelly sector. And in the past 4 years, we've learned about Kelly and his behaviors, right? So there's a lot of comparison. So I'm going to play it. And I'm going to throw some comments on the screen. I might jump in here and there. All right. Because there's, and I need you guys, when I begin to play this video, I need you guys to let me know if you can hear it. Okay. Because I want to try to do it one certain way. And I want to make sure that y'all can hear it. If not, then I'm going to have to do it another way. And I really wanted to be muted on this side because things are happening in the background. And I don't want distractions from the background, with the live. So, let's begin. Okay. Now, I pre-recorded this, so that's why you see my face on the screen. Okay, guys? So I'm going to hide my little self, and you're going to see my big self on the screen. All right? Okay. And welcome to everyone else who has jumped into the building. Boston, what's up, mama? 504, what's up, lady? What's up, mama? Tune, what's up, my tune? What's up, puppy? Okay. Who else? I said hello to TBM. Yes, okay. All right. And everybody else, what's up, everybody who's in the bushes? Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon to all my babies in the bushes, who like to just stay there. I love y'all. Mwah. And my haters. Hi, haters. I hope y'all can learn. And to all the R. Kelly supporters, what's up, what's up, what's up? Some of y'all are haters too. But some of y'all love me. It's okay. I love y'all too. I have love for everybody, okay? As long as you have love for me, I got love for you. That's it. That's all. Hey, Joanne. What's up, mama? Take God, Kelly. Give us back Tupac. Please do. Thank you. And Biggie. Give them both back. Thanks. Hey, my flawless. What's up, lady? The fashion designer. I love it. All right, guys. So let's get this on the road. Sorry about the distraction in the background. All right. So let me try to see if I can do this. All right. Let me do it again. Hold on. Share. Okay. Share system audio. That's what it should do. Let's see if it does it, guys. Tell me if y'all can hear it, okay? Wait, let me go back this way. Okay, thank you, guys. So I'm going to have to do it the other way. All right, y'all. Shit. I really didn't want to do it that way, but okay. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. No, wait. There we go. Okay. All right. Hey, Tom Bella. What's up, mama? Okay, yes. Got it, guys. I'm going to have to do it the other way. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Chapter 1. Sadism. Sadism is a psychosexual condition in which sexual urges are gratified by the infliction of pain on another person. The term was created by the late 19th century German psychologist Richard von Krafft-Ebing in reference to Marquis de Sade, an 18th century French nobleman who chronicled his own such practices. Sadism is typically linked to masochism, in which sexual arousal arises from receiving real pain, and many individuals react in either role. The sadist, however, often seeks a victim who is not a masochist, since some of the sexual enjoyment derives from the victim's objection. The level and degree of vicious violence might differ significantly from infliction of moderately strong pain, in otherwise harmless love play, to extreme cruelty, in some cases leading to serious injury or death. The satisfaction of the sadist might result not from causing actual physical strong pain, but rather from the psychological suffering of the victim. Sexual urges may restrict the level of violence, but sometimes the aggressive impulse becomes predominant and the sadist advances to more severe expressions of his violent propensities. Sadism might be an important factor in some of the violent criminal activities, especially rape and murder. The term sadism is sometimes used outside the sexual context to describe individuals who are deliberately terrible but who seem to obtain satisfaction from embarrassing and dominating others in social circumstances. In this context, some milder forms of sadism are reasonably more acceptable, like the application of humiliating sarcasm as a conversational tool. The essential function of sexual sadism is not in the gut feeling of sexual excitement arising from the infliction of true pain on the victim, but rather it's from witnessing his or her suffering. Sexual sadism is considered a mental disorder. It's just one of some paraphilias. A paraphilia is characterized by an obsession.
Okay. I'm going to have to do it the other way. Shit. Thank you, guys.
Rated by Joseph. Dark Psychology. Sadism. Chapter 1.
All right. All right, now let's see if you guys can hear it this way. How does it sound here? It's he's got a very deep voice, and the actual sound, it sounds like they had it on a high bass. So it's gonna sound a little bassy. You know what I mean? Because I was saying that too. I was like, damn, why does it sound so too much bass? Like there's just too much bass in it. And it's his voice too. So all right, but we're gonna get it together, guys. We're gonna get it together because he says a lot of good shit here. This is a very good book. All right, so let's try this again. All right, I'm gonna start it again and give me a thumbs up. Let me know, what's your opinion and what's going on, okay? All right, so I'm gonna start over.
Chapter 1. Sadism. Sadism is a psychosexual condition in which sexual urges are gratified by the infliction of pain on another person. The term was created by the late 19th century German psychologist Richard von Krafft-Ebing in reference to Marquis de Sade, an 18th century French nobleman who chronicled his own such practices. Sadism is typically linked to masochism, in which sexual arousal arises from receiving real pain, and many individuals react in either role. The sadist, however, often seeks a victim who is not a masochist, since some of the sexual enjoyment derives from the victim's objection. The level and degree of vicious violence might differ significantly from infliction of moderately strong pain in otherwise harmless love play to extreme cruelty, in some cases leading to serious injury or death. The satisfaction of the sadist might result not from causing actual physical strong pain, but rather from the psychological suffering of the victim. Sexual urges may restrict the level of violence, but sometimes the aggressive impulse becomes predominant, and the sadist advances to more severe expressions of his violent propensities. Sadism might be an important factor in some of the violent criminal activities, especially rape and murder. The term sadism is sometimes used outside the sexual context to describe individuals who are deliberately terrible or who seem to obtain satisfaction from embarrassing or dominating others in social circumstances.
You hear what he's saying, guys? Like, I'm gonna rewind that again because I know y'all just coming in, and it was a little wacky. So I'm gonna rewind it. All right. I really want you guys to really pay attention, especially to those in the back. Okay. I really need those in the back to really understand, because us over here, we kind of understand mental health and psychology, right? A lot of you guys in the back don't understand it. And you guys have a lot of questions, but you don't see anything wrong with what uh, R. Kelly has done. You guys don't think that he can be this type of human being with these type of psychological issues. And in a factor, it's not true. I think he has a lot of issues. He's really, he has a dark mind, a very, very dark mind. And it started from young. Yes, it started from when he was young. That's not his fault. Okay? We're not blaming him for what happened when he was a kid. We're blaming him for the fact that he never got the help he needed and continued to live out his worst nightmares over and over and over again, doing it to other people. So just pay attention. Just listen and pay attention. Everything that this man talks about here in these next 6 chapters, in an hour, I want to just grab your mind for 1 hour and just pay attention. Guys in the chat, as you guys are listening, please throw up your analysis, your opinions about the comparisons that you guys can see with R. Kelly and a person who has a dark psychology, somebody who's very dark in their mind. Okay? Because this points out everything. I mean, really seriously, it does. All right, so I'm going to start it over. Now that we're up and ready, everybody's in, we're good. Everybody said hello to everybody. Okay.
Chapter 1. Sadism. Sadism is a psychosexual condition in which sexual urges are gratified by the infliction of pain on another person. The term was created by the late 19th century German psychologist Richard von Krafft-Ebing, in reference to Marquis de Sade, an 18th century French nobleman who chronicled his own such practices. Sadism is typically linked to masochism, in which sexual arousal arises from receiving real pain, and many individuals react in either role. The sadist, however, often seeks a victim who is not a masochist, since some of the sexual enjoyment derives from the victim's objection. The level and degree of vicious.
Some of the predators, the sadist, he thrives off of the victim's fear, pain. It gives him satisfaction.
Violence might differ significantly from infliction of moderately strong pain in otherwise harmless love play to extreme cruelty, in some cases leading to serious injury or death. The satisfaction of the sadist might result not from causing actual physical strong pain, but rather from the psychological suffering of the victim. Sexual urges may restrict the level of violence, but sometimes the aggressive impulse becomes predominant and the sadist advances to more severe expressions of his violent propensities. Sadism might be an important factor in some of the violent criminal activities, especially rape and murder. The term sadism is sometimes used outside the sexual context to describe individuals who are deliberately terrible or who seem to obtain satisfaction from embarrassing or dominating others in social circumstances.
There's a satisfaction. And if you guys think about the trial, right? And how it went down and how the girls described the way he was with them, especially Azriel, right? If you think about all the patterns that he had with every girl, it's pretty much exactly the same with every girl. This man has developed himself to be this way over time and continued to be this way because he what do you call that? He made his craft very, 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 very well. Yes, he doesn't know how to read or write, but he knows what he's doing in his mind. He knows what he's doing. R. Kelly knows what he's doing. Just because he can't read and write does not mean that he doesn't have it up here with wit. He's very smart, very sneaky, very skilled. He's developed these things over time, these traits. He developed a very dark character. This is why he is where he is.
In this context, some milder forms of sadism are reasonably more acceptable, like the application of humiliating sarcasm as a conversational tool. The essential function of sexual sadism is not in the gut feeling of sexual excitement arising from the infliction of true pain on the victim, but rather it's from witnessing his or her suffering. Sexual sadism is considered a mental disorder. It's just one of some paraphilias. A paraphilia is characterized by an obsession with unusual sexual practices and/or with actual sexual activity with non-consensual individuals and animals. Pedophilia, Voyeurism and exhibitionism are additional types of paraphilias. It's approximated that sexual sadists are responsible for between 7 and 10% of all sex criminal activities. Sexual sadists are predominantly male. However, there is a prevalence of female dominatrixes in sadomasochistic porn.
So you hear what he was saying? Women are sadists too, and those are the dominatrix of the world. But there's not a lot of that. There's more men into this sadism than there are women. But the women are the dominatrix. Okay? And as we know about S&M, right, which is sadomasochistic acts, right, in the bedroom, where, like he was explaining, there's levels to it. And both people, parties, or all parties involved have to have safe words, passwords, code words, whatever. And they all have to consent and agree to certain measures of humiliation and degradation and satisfaction, pain and pleasure. If you guys have not seen 50 Shades of Grey, I advise you do. I advise you do, so that you can understand the difference between S&M play and role playing compared to abuse. There's levels to it. There's rules in this world. There's boundaries that you cannot cross. He's going to explain all of that, guys. This is really good.
A sexual sadist has intense fantasies and/or performs real actions, since he desires complete sexual, physical, or psychological dominance over another person. Sexual sadism might be either physical or mental in nature. Sadistic acts vary from behaviors that do not physically damage another, although it may be embarrassing to the other person, like being urinated or defecated on, to criminal, violent, and potentially deadly conduct. The necessary feature of sexual sadism is not in the gut feeling of sexual excitement arising from the infliction of true pain on the victim, but rather it's from witnessing his or her suffering. In extreme cases, sexual sadism can result in serious injury or death. Psychological health specialists agree that these disastrous actual results are more likely when the sadism is identified as extreme and when it's related to an antisocial personality disorder, a psychopath. Sexual sadism needs to be differentiated from normal sexual arousal and experimentation between consenting adults. Some forms of mild aggression, like love bites, pats, or scratching, are within the series of typical behavior throughout sexual relations. With a consenting couple, the sadistic conduct normally only includes mild pain and/or the simulation of more dangerous strong pain. The intent is shared excitement. The true sexual sadist is harsh, and his actions are not wanted by the victim. An example would be the following. Spanking involves only minimal physical pain, although whipping, stunning, burning, beating, stabbing, strangling, raping, mutilation, and murder indicate torture and suffering. Restraint between grown-ups is very different than jail time in a cage, shackled with chains. Moderate sadism is referred to as S&M, and often involves chains, discipline, supremacy, and submission. Moderate sadists look for masochistic partners, and their habits are consensual. Significant sadism, nevertheless, is not.
You see what he said? In that world, you have to have people that are consenting. And it's sensual. And this is what they both want, what they both like. You have to have people that want that. If they don't want it, you're giving abuse. You're abusing them. You're making them slaves. It's not even fun. It's more about power and control. There's a difference. R. Kelly was doing these things for power and control, not to role play and have fun and this, that, and the third. It was about control and power. None of the girls wanted that. They did it because they felt threatened to.
Consensual and can involve injury and death. The sadist not only wants complete control and compliance, he wants his victim to feel fear. It's this fear that turns him on. Sexual sadists tend to associate with people regarding power versus love. Generally speaking, they commit more violent criminal activities than other offenders and are more aggressive. This corresponds with the psychopathy they show. Psychopaths are predatory. They lack the capability to feel empathy or remorse. They prepare and they practice. Psychopaths are also typically charming and charismatic. The crazed sexual sadist typically has no issue finding a partner or several accomplices to his criminal offenses if he so desires. Dr. J. Reed Malloy, a forensic psychologist, provides additional qualities of a demented sexual sadist: impersonation of police, abduction of victims to a pre-selected place, binding of the victim, psychological detachment throughout attack, rape, typically causing murder, typically by strangulation. The killed victim is generally concealed. The transgressor records his activities. Victims are probably complete strangers. The attack is methodical and repeated from one victim to another. In practically all cases of sexual sadism, including sexual murder, rehearsal fantasy is a requirement. There are several types of rapists, varying everywhere from the opportunistic to the sexually sadistic to the gang rapist. The anger excitation rapist, although described as the sexually vicious rapist, is the most harmful. Those sadistic rapists actually dislike women, considering them as worthless sluts. He seeks complete power over this enemy. He has a strategy that he knows how to perform, and he will do it over and over for as long as he can get away with it. The abuse will...
You heard what he said? The sadistic will do it over and over and over and over and over again. As long as he can get away with it, he will continue to do it over and over and over again. Just like R. Kelly. Over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. For an span of 30 years. And you guys honestly think that this man should not go down? You supporters actually think that this man should not go down? It's crazy to me. I mean, I loved R. Kelly one time too. His music is great. Loved his music. I didn't love the man personally, wasn't like a big Goo Goo Gaga fan, but I loved his music. And I can distinguish this man being a man, a regular man. Take that star title away from him. Remove his crown and look at him as a man. He's a regular man, just like any other man walking the street. Why can't this man not do any of these things? Why can't this man not treat people the way that they have been speaking about him in these streets? Why? Why can't you think that this man can't do no wrong, no harm? He's not violent. He's not sick. He's not twisted. You have to remember, he went through stuff as a child. And that did something to him. And then he became a star. And that did it even more for him. mental health is real and he has mental health issues. And I can definitely agree with that. He needed to get the help he needed a long time ago. I don't know why he didn't. But according to dark psychology here, he has mental issues. The shit that happened to him in the past made him who he is today. And then growing into this narcissist made it even more grandiose for him. All these yes men and everybody kissing his feet and doing what they're told made him even more beyond than the skies can see. I just don't get it.
Intensify if he has the time. He rehearses each detail, and he has all of the needed devices to play out his actions and his fantasies. David Parker Ray is suspected by cops to have killed as many as 60 people in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Ray tortured and killed his victims in a 100,000 homemade torture chamber that he called his toy box, which contained gynecological test table and was geared up with whips, chains, pulley blocks, straps, clamps, leg spreader bars, an electronic getting gadget.
R. Kelly didn't have all these things. He did have dildos, and he did have a massage table, just like Jeffrey Epstein had a massage table, right? He had some tools in there, some baby oil and lotions, I'm pretty sure, and things of that nature. I don't know about handcuffs and ropes and things like that because no one has actually spoken about that except for Andrea, that she did say she was hogtied, right? Right. Let's continue.
A motorized breast stretcher box, and also surgical blades and saws. A closed-circuit TV and camera were wired into the abuse chamber so that a victim could be forced to watch their own abuse. Along with many sex toys and torture tools, there was a stunning gadget that was used in torture. Another prolific serial sexual sadist murderer, James de Bardeleben, wrote out some 100 pages of notes, creating a how-to workbook for complete sexual control and domination. His quote-unquote advice included how to get your satisfaction early, separate and keep her dependent, make all the decisions, stop her from getting any skills, don't let her get educated or have any power, be ready to cut her loose if needed, never show any.
Remember what the girls had said as Riel had made a statement stating that her and Joy had to go looking for work. When they did go looking for work, they had to work together and they couldn't work around men. So what do you think that is? Control. He's trying to discourage them from going out and getting work. They can't be out in the world working because they can't be around men. They have to work together. He was holding them hostage. Period. That's what a hostage looks like. Okay? Hostage doesn't necessarily mean they have to hold you in a room for days and days and days and days and days. No. Hostage means that I could be in your house and you don't let me go nowhere. And if I do, I have people following with me. That these people are going to report every move I make. If I'm using the phone, who am I texting? Oh, what kind of clothes did I pick out? How much money did I spend on food? Am I even allowed to eat? Let's get with it, people. Let's get real here now. Okay? Hostage doesn't necessarily mean they're tied up and duct taped against their mouth and sitting in a chair waiting for somebody to rescue them. No. If you don't know what a hostage is, look up the definition. There's a lot of definitions behind hostage. Okay?
Debartaleben even offered his own meaning of sadism: the central impulse to have complete proficiency over another person, to make her or him a helpless thing of our will, to become her god. Sexual sadists often have violent fantasies that start in childhood, though the onset of real vicious habits usually take place in early adult life. Once the vicious behaviors begin, it will usually advance a chronic course. Acts of sexual sadism tend to grow more strange or violent gradually. However, as male sadists age, their capability to commit such acts reduces. Sexual sadism is rarely identified in men over 50. The diagnosis is poor. There's no remedy for sexual sadism, and an efficient therapy and/or psychotropic medication routine has not been developed. Police and the sexual sadist. Previous FBI profiler Robert Hazelwood offers the following tips and clues for examining a sexual sadist. If, as a law enforcement officer, you are involved in a case with a thought criminal sexual sadist, recognize that they can be, and often are, quite notable adversaries. These crooks are psychopathic, shrewd and sophisticated phonies. The sadist views himself as smarter than the rest of society, specifically law enforcement personnel. In addition, he has generally mastered the art of deception. Even if he's challenged with hard evidence, he will inevitably rationalize his actions. He won't be moved by pleas for empathy. He's unable to feel guilt or regret.
Wow, did y'all just hear that? That's why he's not going to cop a plea. That's why he's not even going to make a statement. And if he does, like this man just said, it's going to be a crock of shit.
Finding witnesses to come forward can be an obstacle, as the sadist is at times able to force a victim into certified partner. Furthermore, many victims may hesitate to provide information due to the embarrassing nature of the crimes committed against them. Your best sources of information will originate from ex-girlfriends and former spouses. They ended their relationship with the sadist generally as a result of his sexual fantasies and habits targeted toward them. The search warrant will be among your most effective tools. Sexual sadists ritualistically keep keepsakes from their victims, criminal activity stuff, written or audiovisual recordings of their crimes, weapons and other abuse devices, and electronic camera or video devices.
Wow! Look at that! Backpack. I'll load it up and I see what I can do for you. Backpack.
All of these items should be noted in your warrant. In addition, the sexual sadist is normally a collector of pornography, ladies' underclothing, sexual toys, investigator publications, and chaining devices. Talking to the sexual sadist is regularly tough and exhausting. The interviewer needs to know every little thing possible about the suspect, including his strengths and weaknesses, just before the preliminary questioning. They will often be agreeable to an interview with law enforcement, even after being advised of their rights. They totally believe that they have the capability to outsmart the detective, and are convinced they won't divulge any incriminating information. More importantly, they expect more information about the status of the investigation throughout the interview. The ideal investigator is older, of larger stature, and higher intelligence than the suspect, and should represent an image of self-confidence and relaxation. The suspect.
Happy birthday, Eva, mama. Mwah, 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 mwah. God bless you, baby. Everybody say happy birthday to Eva.
Usually remains calm throughout the main interview, and since he craves attention, may prattle for hours. He'll try to manipulate the discussion, especially if he actually believes the detective is getting along with him. The interview needs to be performed in a formal setting and with professionalism. Questions should be prepared and organized so that the suspect cannot answer with a simple no. A sexual sadist will most likely try to anger, annoy, and even surprise the investigator. Any evidence of human emotion by the detective could weaken the interview. The suspect will see this as a victory and as further evidence of his superiority. Masochism is the practice of getting pleasure by infliction of pain and suffering on oneself. Masochism may be of a sexual nature or may not. A person who practices masochism is a masochist. The adjective form is masochistic. The word masochism is derived from the name Leopoldo von Scher-Masoch, an author of a unique writing depicting sexual submission. Sadomasochism is the practice of getting pleasure by both causing real pain and having strong pain caused on oneself. Sadomasochism is nearly always of sexual nature. The person who practices sadomasochism is a sadomasochist. The adjective form is sadomasochistic. The word sadomasochism initially appeared in 1916 as a portmanteau of the words sadism and masochism. A portmanteau is a word built by mixing the noises and meanings of two different words. Bear in mind that the sadomasochism is appropriately rendered without a hyphen, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, though it is often seen spelled with a hyphen. And you? Many regular behaviors, just like infantilizing, tickling, and love-butting, include certain elements of sadomasochism. It's
Tickling, guys. Remember Tank's interview on Drink Champs. What did he say about R. Kelly, y'all? Put it in the chat if y'all remember what Tank said about R. Kelly and tickling him. Y'all remember that?
author of a unique writing depicting sexual submission. Sadomasochism is the practice of getting pleasure by both causing real pain and having strong pain caused on oneself. Sadomasochism is nearly always of sexual nature. The person who practices sadomasochism is a sadomasochist. The adjective form is sadomasochistic. The word sadomasochism initially appeared in 1916 as a portmanteau of the words sadism and masochism. A portmanteau is a word built by mixing the noises and meanings.
He said he felt uncomfortable when R. Kelly was doing that. Like, yo, bro, like, why you? And then, he got comfortable after a minute. Like, okay. He found that mighty odd. Like, what grown-ass man comes to another grown-ass man and tickles him? That's some sadomasochistic shit. Okay?
Of two different words. Bear in mind that the sadomasochism is appropriately rendered without a hyphen, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, though it is often seen spelled with a hyphen. And you? Many regular behaviors, just like infantilizing, tickling, and love-butting, include certain elements of sadomasochism. It's possible to read this short article and think that this sort of stuff only applies to a small number of deviants, but the truth is that every one of us harbors sadomasochistic propensities. In the words of the Roman playwright Terence, I am human and consider absolutely nothing human to be alien to me.
Oh.
In almost every relationship, one partner is more connected than the other, leading the less connected partner to become dominant, while the more attached partner becomes infantilized and submissive in a desire to pacify, please, and seduce. Eventually, the less attached partner feels stifled and takes distance, but if he ventures too far, the more attached partner might simply go cold and shut out or leave. This in turn provokes the less
Now you see what he's describing right here? He's describing Joy and Azriel. Azriel became the more dominant one. She was the one that was more pleasing for R. Kelly. Joy was the more shy one, the quiet one, the one who was abused the most emotionally. We don't know how physical it got for her, but we know she was emotionally distraught. I'm going to rewind that a little bit, okay?
So sadomasochism is a sadomasochist. The adjective form is sadomasochistic. The word sadomasochism initially appeared in 1916 as a portmanteau of the words sadism and masochism. A portmanteau is a word built by mixing the noises and meanings of two different words. Bear in mind that the sadomasochism is appropriately rendered without a hyphen, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, though it is often seen spelled with a hyphen. And you? Many regular behaviors, just like infantilizing, tickling, and love-butting, include certain elements of sadomasochism. It's possible to read this short article and think that this sort of stuff only applies to a small number of deviants, but the truth is that every one of us harbors sadomasochistic propensities. In the words of the Roman playwright Terence, I am human and consider absolutely nothing human to be alien to me. In almost every relationship, one partner is more connected than the other, leading the less connected partner to become dominant, while the more attached partner becomes infantilized and submissive in a desire to pacify, please, and seduce. Eventually, the less attached partner feels stifled and takes distance, but if he ventures too far, the more attached partner might simply go cold and shut out or leave. This in turn provokes the less connected partner to turn and become the more passionate of the two partners. Eventually, the balance reestablishes itself until it's upset again, and so on ad infinitum. Dominance and submission are elements of most relationships, but that doesn't stop them from being tiring, sterile, and to echo Freud, immature. Rather than playing cat and mouse, lovers really need to have the self-confidence and the courage to rise up above the game, and not just by getting wed. By learning to trust one another, they can dare to see one another as the fully fledged humans that they truly are, ends in themselves rather than simple means to an end. True love is about respecting, sharing, nurturing, and enabling. But how many people have the capacity and the maturity for this kind of love? And obviously, it takes two not to tango. What sadomasochism can teach us about human sexuality. Like all good spouses, I took my partner to see the most recent installment of the 50 Shades of Grey film series, 50 Shades Darker, on Valentine's Day weekend. Undoubtedly, this romantic gesture wasn't entirely selfish. As it happens, I'm presently studying on the role of dominance and submission in human sexuality. While neither one of us is in the quote-unquote scene, we are nevertheless swept up in the present cultural attraction to consensual sadomasochism, though for different reasons. My fascination originates from my general interest in human sexuality and its advancement. My field, evolutionary psychology, has been at the leading edge of exploring human conduct through the evolutionary lens for more than 20 years, and has made tremendous advances for many years. Though its greatest accomplishments are in the world of sex distinctions and mating behavior, it is not restricted to the sexual realm, as is evidenced by the increasing output of research on the advancement of morality, faith, and politics. Indeed, E.O. Wilson's dream of consilience of knowledge across the life sciences and liberal arts is gradually inching its way towards fulfillment. Notwithstanding the ever-expanding reach of Darwinism away from sexuality, the exploration of the evolutionary roots of human sexual behavior isn't yet complete. In addition to the continuing need of cross-cultural research on sex distinctions and variations in biography methods, or simply put, how interested people are in short-term versus long-lasting relationships, knowledge of actual human copulatory behavior is mostly untapped. Ironically, evolutionary scientists have made remarkable advances in the study of human recreation without paying much attention to the reproductive act itself. I actually believe that it's time to get unclean, and the contemporary interest in sadomasochism might blaze a trail. The sexual becomes political. Scientists' reluctance to gauge human copulatory practices through an evolutionary lens might stem in part from the expected political opposition. Undoubtedly, if the history of the application of Darwinian concepts to human beings is anything to pass, evolutionary scientists are wise in their hesitance to explore what humans do between the sheets. Oddly enough, evolutionary-minded social and behavioral scientists seem to be facing greater pushback from their left-leaning co-workers in academia than from biblical creationists. The primary reason, as suggested by Horowitz, Jaworski, and Kitcham's research study of opposition to biological reproaches among sociologists, appears to be the influence of feminist dogma within the academy. But being on the receiving end of feminist puritanism actually makes kinksters and evolutionary researchers strange bedfellows. Notwithstanding the current breakdown of taboos surrounding the BDSM, that is, bondage, Chapter 1 scientists are wise in their hesitance to explore what humans do between the sheets. Oddly enough, evolutionary-minded social and behavioral scientists seem to be facing greater pushback from their left-leaning co-workers in academia than from biblical creationists. The primary reason, as suggested by Horowitz, Jaworski, and Kitcham's research study of opposition to biological reproaches among sociologists, appears to be the influence of feminist dogma within the academy. But being on the receiving end of feminist puritanism actually makes kinksters and evolutionary researchers strange bedfellows. Notwithstanding the current breakdown of taboos surrounding the BDSM, that is, bondage, discipline, supremacy, sadism, and masochism, living style, thanks in no small part to the 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon, biases and fears stay. Similar to the opposition to evolutionary psychology, the main opposition to BDSM falls under either of two camps, the spiritual right and the extreme feminist left. The previous is to be expected, but the latter is not. You may actually think that feminists would support the rights of all sexual minorities, but in Against Sadomasochism, the self-described radical feminist editors write, SM, sadomasochism, is not the sharing of power. It is simply a depressing replay of the old and destructive dominant/subordinate mode of human relations and one-sided power, and that is even now grinding our earth and our human consciousness into dust. This appears a little apocalyptic, as though blindfolds and ball gags might be speeding up environmental change or nuclear annihilation. Either way, the hazard of sadomasochism perceived by some radical feminism is the dominant/subordinate relationship itself. That this relationship is consensual does not matter. Such a relationship can never be equal, since according to these radical feminists, while paying lip service to consensual sex, the sexual revolution ignores the power systems which create inequality and make meaningful consents an impossibility. And so all this crap about consensual sex, changing roles backward and forward, safe words, and so on ad nauseum, is, in my mind, just a cover that encourages women to be violent. Sadomasochism is violence. Many within and beyond the BDSM community, and that includes sex-positive feminists, have appropriately criticized such beliefs as antithetical to the whole values of feminine independence on which feminism is established. No matter. Like all good Puritans, these pearl-clutching sisters know what's best for all women, specifically when it comes to what women can and can't do with their bodies. As anti-egalitarian as such judgmental pureness is, its greatest evil might be in its denial of a full life to everyone who does not toe this specific radical feminist line. That is, it's not just that this view purchases from women by rejecting them their sexual autonomy. It's that it denies everyone who might be attracted to the interplay of sexual dominance and subordination their right to a pleasureful and meaningful existence. The evolution of dominance and subordination. The relationship between dominance and subordination, both inside and outside the bedroom, has a long evolutionary history. Even though we must all bear in mind the naturalistic fallacy, that is, the claim that as something is quote-unquote natural, it is ethical or should be preferred. We should give nature its due when it points us towards greater well-being and morally informed enjoyment. As such, the dynamic between dominance and subordination isn't only natural, but is also capable of lighting up the outermost reaches of human enjoyment, while playing, paradoxically, on human pain. Sexual tension is typically, if not always, produced by the tension between supremacy and subordination. Even innocent flirtation and teen-teasing are, at bottom, a power exchange. This is the reason that misdirected, albeit well-intentioned, calls for quote-unquote affirmative authorization on college campuses are so antithetical to the development of sexual maturity. Mentioning on such spirited games of pursuit and resistance between lovers, the great forensic psychiatrist Richard von Krafft-Ebing wrote, "Hence it will happen that one of the consorts in sexual heat will strike, bite, or pinch the other, that kissing degenerates into biting. Lovers and young couples are fond of teasing one another. They battle together just for fun, delight in various kinds of horseplay. The shift from these atavistic manifestations, and that no doubt comes from the sphere of physiological sexuality, to the most monstrous acts of destruction of the consort's life can be easily traced. When guys commit monstrous acts of damage or sexual murder, it's skeptical that they gain any procreative benefits consensually. How can one spread a person's genes if one kills the mother of somebody's future child? But sexual coercion is another matter. As nature is thrifty, in that it rarely creates something new if natural selection can utilize something old, Krafft-Ebing's observation of a direct line between consensual courtship and the most monstrous acts of damage may have some validity. Particularly, I actually believe that consensual sexual supremacy may have developed from a coercive predecessor. Evolutionary psychologists are, for the most part, agnostic on the problem of whether rape is a naturally selected adjustment in human beings. But even if the expenses of rape make it so that it is rarely an effective means for a guy to propagate his genes, that is, if ancestral rapists repeatedly faced retribution, or if ancestral women participated in selective infanticide, it is still early to say that all forms of coercive sexuality are biologically maladaptive. For example, though a sexual encounter may be consensual at first, it can quickly turn coercive if a man chooses to extend copulation until ejaculation in spite of the woman's resistance. That a guy can easily do this is suggested by guys' outsized strength compared to ladies, and that they can get away with it is, alas, a real possibility. Likewise, although subordination connotes the consensual surrender of power, it might simply be the only manner in which a lady can stay away from the brutally violent expenses of resistance. This proposed evolutionary history of consensual dominance, and even sadism, says nothing about its current moral status. To show this point with an example, it is possible that the human fondness for cooperation might be due, in part, to the human penchant for blood-soaked warfare between contending coalitions of ancestral people. Regardless of the validity of the hypothesis, it illustrates the possibility that much of what we value about ourselves and humankind as a whole might have been wrought to serve the abhorrent desire of our lying, cheating, stealing, and murdering forefathers. Consensual sexual supremacy may be one such evolved product. The sexual selection of dominance. In what follows, I'm going to reason that sexual choice liberated sexual supremacy from its coercive ancestral satanic forces. Particularly, I pose that ancestral women, when confronted with the prospect of mating with a coercive and dominant man, a non-coercive and non-dominant man, or a non-coercive albeit dominant man, typically opted for the third choice. The first reason for this is the value of male supremacy in competition with other males, particularly if a guy exhibits dominance throughout courtship and copulation. He's indicating his ability to successfully take on other guys for social status in male hierarchies. Women are attracted to high-status guys, as such guys are either genetically superior, having the resources necessary to buy women and her kids.
You heard what he said? Women are usually attracted to high-status guys. Okay? It's just a normal reaction.
Or both. Although some degree of sexual conflict between the men and women is expected, a guy's non-coercive supremacy throughout courtship and copulation may say something about his capability to stand his ground in interactions with other guys. The second reason that women choose dominant men is the simple fact that other women choose dominant guys. That isn't a tautology. My high school American history instructor, Miss Gibbs, once told us an anecdote about Benjamin Franklin. It was said that old kite-flying Ben would surround himself with typical-looking women at supper parties in order to get the attention of the more attractive ones. Whether true or not, Ben Franklin's presumed exploits are supported by research on what makes guys attractive. Specifically, women are attracted to men whom other women, particularly physically appealing women, find appealing. So if other women find dominant men attractive, it would benefit a lady to mate with a dominant man, because any son born of such a union would inherit his father's dominance and thereby help to spread his mother's genes. That hypothesis, the so-called sexy son hypothesis, suggests that whatever other benefits a man might accumulate through his supremacy, it's simply enough for women to consider it quote-unquote sexy for it to be sexually picked into the male line of our species. Most of the time, though, traits that are chosen by members of the opposite sex communicate something essential about the bearer of those traits, in addition to sexiness per se. As I'll elaborate in my discussion of sexual subordination, sexually chosen characteristics are often chosen by potential sex partners as their truthful, pricey signals of a person's hereditary status. So, for example, a man who has the capability of showing supremacy, while curbing it just enough not to come off as coercive, may be interacting something important about his physical and mental state. Specifically, if a man is able to toe the fine line of sexual supremacy and even show a certain amount of passionate aggressiveness without diverting over into the danger zone of browbeating, he may be a good catch indeed. The subtlety, tact, and finesse required to achieve this should not be dismissed. As it happens, being a successful quote-unquote dom, or simply put, a sexually dominant or sadistic individual in the BDSM scene, needs such subtlety, tact, and finesse. As Philip Miller and Millie Devon write in Screw the Roses, Send Me the Thorns, the ideal dominant controls himself, so he may control his submissive. He will, as a stern dominant, trigger tears to flow, and as a lover, kiss them away. He comprehends that to own a lady, one must court the mind intelligence and humor, win the spirit with empathy and warmth, and take the body with determined strength. He is the honorable sadist who uses strong pain to extend the bounds of satisfaction, vigilant that no damage comes of the hurt. Understanding the advancement of consensual sexual supremacy is half of the fight. As BDSM practitioners are never ever sick of saying, the quote-unquote sub, that is, the submissiveness or masochistic individual in a BDSM interaction, is just as active an individual as the dom. Some further assert that the sub actually manages the scene, and that it's the dom who has to read or intuit the needs, desires, fears, discomforts, and enjoyments of the sub. In what follows, I hypothesize on the development of sexual submissiveness. I should include that, as with my discussion of the development of sexual dominance, only time will tell whether any of these hypotheses have merit. The sexual choice of subordination. In addition to discovering natural choice as the source of complexity in nature, Charles Darwin really deserves credit for the discovery of sexual choice. Though Darwin could explain the evolution of eyes and limbs as utilitarian solutions to the problems of seeing and grasping, he had a more difficult time clarifying the advancement of ostentatious, various-colored, seemingly worthless characteristics embellishing nature's kingdom. Writing to the great American botanist Asa Gray, Darwin lamented, "The sight of a feather in a peacock's tail, when I look at it, makes me sick." It was not until Darwin found that anatomical or behavior qualities could occur simply because they're preferred by members of the opposite sex in breeding contexts that his sickness ceased. However, Darwin's discovery was not all there was to sexual selection. In 1975, Israeli biologist Amatz Zahavi proposed the handicapped concept. To illustrate this principle with an often cited example, picture two runners. Both are racing toward the same finish line, but one of the runners has to bear the burden of carrying a 100-pound bag of sand on his shoulders. If this runner winds up winning the race, we can be fairly confident that he's a great runner indeed. Likewise, a peacock who...
Yes, yada dada. Definitely. It sure is. He tells you about the red flags, what you should look out for, how these people are supposed to behave when you're in a relationship with dealing with S&M, as opposed to a relationship where you don't want to be in one. You know, he's breaking it down. I love it. Well, he's the reader. But the name of the book is called Dark Psychology, Sadism, Threats, Extortion, and Blackmail by Amanda Grapes. Let me do this real quick.
I feel cold.
I'm going to put the title of the book in the chat, okay?
Can survive the danger of predation while carrying and keeping the beauty of his troublesome tail, should have quite the genes to show for it, and should thus be favored as an ideal mate by a picky peahen. In this way, the peacock's tail ends up being a handicap, that is, an honest signal of the peacock's mate value. Handicaps can be found in all sizes and shapes, and are even displayed as habits. The peacock, for example, doesn't just prance around with his glamorous tail, but flails it rhythmically in an attempt to hypnotize a prospective peahen into mating with him. A severe manifesting of a behavior handicap can be observed among male bowerbirds of New Guinea, who build wonderfully symmetrical buildings and constructions, meaning bowers, out of leaves, sticks, and even soda cans to attract mates. These bowers are not nests and don't serve any purpose other than to communicate the strength, endurance, and virility of the bower homebuilder. In our own species, both males and females exhibit anatomical and behavior handicaps, from large bosoms to smart and creative minds. Remember that it isn't just women doing the choosing. Mutual mate choice is an essential, albeit disregarded, effect on human evolution. I propose that submission and masochism in the context of consensual sexual behavior functions as a sexually selected handicap. While submission and masochism are exhibited by both male and female BDSM professionals, women enjoy sexual subordination to a higher extent than do guys. As such, I really believe that this sexual predisposition functions mainly as a female fitness indication. That it may function as a true handicap is suggested by none other than the infamous Donatien Alphonse Francois, better referred to as the Marquis de Sade, whose name is invoked any time we use the word sadism. Speaking through the depraved Clement, a homicidal monk, in his 1791 novel Justine, Sade writes, "Here is no more vibrant feeling than that of real pain. Its impressions are certain and trustworthy. They never ever trick, as may those of the enjoyment women perpetually feign, and almost never ever experience." Although Clement, and probably Sade himself, is generally worried about the effect of his victim's pain on his own sexual satisfaction, there is evolutionary importance in his declaration. Unlike the female orgasm, and that is easy to fake, the capability to stand up to real pain is much more tough. That is, the only way to know whether a sex partner has the wherewithal to endure pain is to actually hurt the partner, albeit within procedure. Why would one want a partner who can endure strong pain? Maybe it says something about her or his physiological and mental effectiveness, and in women, capability to look after children under tempting scenarios, such as scarcity, war, or a host of other gauntlets experienced by our forefathers throughout evolutionary history. But one doesn't want to mate with an unfeeling, insensitive robot either. People who are born without the capability to feel pain or discomfort don't endure for long, and are even less capable of looking after others under their care, like dependent kids. For this reason, the voluntary recipient of strong pain throughout the sexual act should be able to give off a physiological reaction that is indicative of her capability to feel pain and yet to react to it properly. Indeed, the sadist's sexual excitement in reaction to the masochist's real or feigned hysteria may work as a mate selection mechanism that removes partners who lack proper physical and physiological sensitivity while retaining ones who have such sensitivity. That emotionality can operate as a pricey fitness sign is suggested by cross-species research on maternal choice mechanisms that weed out progeny that lack proper emotionality. One evolutionarily informed hypothesis, for instance, suggests that autism might be the low fitness extreme of parental selection for infants efficient in appropriate emotional responsiveness to social interaction. Bringing the Middle Ages out of the Dark Ages. The previous take on the development of consensual sadomasochism is my attempt to come to grips with the evolution of human sexual behavior more normally. That supremacy and subordination are inextricable components of human sexuality is clear, but the extent of their reach is not. No doubt there are differences in the level to which people favor dominance or subordination-based sexual practices, and no doubt there is more to sexuality than the dominant-subordination dynamic. But even people who are ostensibly vanilla, meaning the term BDSM specialists use to refer to the ones who aren't into BDSM, ought to learn something about the nature of consensual sadomasochism, if only that it isn't an abnormal, damaging aberration of human sexuality. Indeed, research studies of BDSM practitioners continuously highlight their mental and social stability. These people aren't the murderous freaks and weirdos Law and Order and CSI. They're your medical professionals, teachers, attorneys, and accounting professionals. Additionally, even seemingly vanilla individuals participate in sadomasochistic sexuality without even recognizing it. Yeah, that light tap on your lover's behind is the exact same category as the lash of a whip or the smack of a paddle, albeit on the less medieval side of the classification spectrum. Undoubtedly, there are more than just 50 shades of gray. Everyday sadists walk among us. Whether it's the Marquis de Sade, the wicked stepmother from Snow White, or Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, all sadists take great satisfaction in inflicting pain on others. Thankfully, you're not likely to meet those specific three anytime soon. But according to an unusual duo of research studies conducted in Vancouver, British Columbia, and published in Mental Science this week, it is extremely possible you will bump into an employer, a co-worker, or even a member of the family who may be considered a daily sadist. While many people try to keep away from hurting others and will feel guilty, remorseful, and distressed if they do hurt someone purposefully or unintentionally, a daily sadist is enjoying being cruel and might find it exciting, said lead researcher Erin Buckles, M.A., who performed this work as a part of her master's thesis in social personality psychology at the University of British Columbia. She is now a doctoral student at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg. Daily sadists lack empathy and they have an internal motivation to hurt others. Nonetheless, they are unlikely to act in a way that would be criminal or dangerous, at least in most contexts where such behavior is consulted with social disapproval or punishment, Buckles said. Chapter 2. Being Blackmailed. Emotional blackmail is a dysfunctional form of manipulation that people use to threaten victims to get what they want. The undertone of emotional blackmail is if you don't do what I want when I want it, you'll suffer. The meaning of psychological blackmail. Emotional blackmail is the process in which an individual makes demands and threats to manipulate another person to get what they really want. It's a kind of mental abuse, triggering damage to the victims. The demands are often meant to manage a victim's conduct through unhealthy ways. Emotional blackmail is a way of being controlled by your partner, yet in these situations it can be difficult to assess and clearly point to whether the victim is being manipulated. Leaders in the field, Susan Forward and Donna Frazier, determine the power dynamic that occurs in such manipulation. They suggest that emotional blackmailers utilize a worry, feeling, guilt technique to get what they want. FOG is a term called by Forward, suggesting that fear, obligation, and guilt are the dynamics in emotional blackmail between the manipulator and the victim. The acronym FOG also accurately defines the confusion and lack of clearness in thinking that can occur in these social dynamics. Emotional blackmail can produce a fog and contribute to feelings of fear, obligation, guilt, and anxiety. According to Forward, emotional blackmail takes place in close relationships. The manipulator leverages knowledge gained about the victim's fears. Blackmailers will use the information they find out about what the victim fears to control them. Forward suggests that one of the most painful components of emotional blackmail is that they use personal information about the victim's weak points against them. Another trigger a blackmailer will apply is putting the victim's sense of responsibility to the test. They will commonly create undeserved guilt and blame to associate their problems to the victim. They make threats related to the victim's emotional triggers to force compliance. An example would be the following. If you don't do what I really want, I'm going to leave you, tell your secrets, not love you. They can also take advantage of the victim's sense of responsibility. All I do is work for this family. The least you could do is ... Blackmailers exploit the victim's sense of guilt to develop confusion and get the victim to succumb to their need. As the tactics can be covert, emotional blackmail might be difficult to spot, especially for those that may experience more vulnerabilities to it. According to Forward, Blackmailers make it almost unrealistic to see how they are controlling us, because they lay down a thick fog that obscures their actions. All the while, if we attempt to fight back, they ensure that we literally cannot see what is really happening to us. They can use hidden methods that develop confusion by making their needs seem unreasonable, making the victim feel self-centered, pathologizing or making the victim appear as if they're insane, or ally with someone of influence to daunt the victim. There are warning signs of emotional blackmail in a relationship. If a single person often excuses things that aren't their doing, like the manipulator's outburst, bad day, or negative behaviors. If someone demands only their way or nothing, even if it is at the expense of the partner. It seems to be a one-way street of sacrifice and compliance.
And in the words of R. Kelly, y'all killing me with this shit, man. Y'all killing me. Form of emotional blackmail.
Or if someone feels daunted or threatened to obey or comply. Chapter 2 of Emotional Blackmail in a Male is a dysfunctional... Chapter 2, Being Blackmailed. Emotional blackmail is a dysfunctional form of manipulation that people use to threaten victims to get what they want. The undertone of emotional blackmail is if you don't do what I want when I want it, you'll suffer. The meaning of psychological blackmail. Emotional blackmail is the process in which an individual makes demands and threats to manipulate another person to get what they really want. It's a kind of mental abuse, triggering damage to the victims. The demands are often meant to manage a victim's conduct through unhealthy ways. Emotional blackmail is a way of being controlled by your partner. Yet in these situations, it can be difficult to assess and clearly point to whether the victim is being manipulated. Leaders in the field, Susan Forward and Donna Frazier, determine the power dynamic that occurs in such manipulation. They suggest that emotional blackmailers utilize a worry, feeling, guilt technique to get what they want. FOG is a term called by Forward, suggesting that fear, obligation, and guilt are the dynamics in emotional blackmail between the manipulator and the victim. The acronym FOG also accurately defines the confusion and lack of clearness in thinking that can occur in these social dynamics. Emotional blackmail can produce a fog and contribute to feelings of fear, obligation, guilt, and anxiety. According to Forward, emotional blackmail takes place in close relationships.
So the acronym FOG is fear, obligation, and guilt. Okay.
Manipulator leverages knowledge gained about the victim's fears. Blackmailers will use the information they find out about what the victim fears to control them. Forward suggests that one of the most painful components of emotional blackmail is that they use personal information about the victim's weak points against them. Another trigger a blackmailer will apply is putting the victim's sense of responsibility to the test. They will commonly create undeserved guilt and blame to associate their problems to the victim. They make threats related to the victim's emotional triggers to force compliance. An example would be the following. If you don't do what I really want, I'm going to leave you, tell your secrets, not love you. They can also take advantage of the victim's sense of responsibility. All I do is work for this family. The least you could do is... Blackmailers exploit the victim's sense of guilt to develop confusion and get the victim to succumb to their need. As the tactics can be covert, emotional blackmail might be difficult to spot, especially for those that may experience more vulnerabilities to it. According to Forward,
now, as we know, R. Kelly has done a lot of emotional blackmail to these young ladies. Anyone in his circle, especially these young ladies that he abused and took advantage of because he knew he could do it. He knew what he was doing. He developed his skills over time. This man is not dumb. He's not slow. He's not retarded. He knows what he's doing.
Blackmailers make it almost unrealistic to see how they are controlling us, because they lay down a thick fog that obscures their actions. All the while, if we attempt to fight back, they ensure that we...
You heard what he said? They create a thick fog. And what is fog again, guys? Fear, obligation, and guilt. Fog. He creates a fog. Fear, obligation, and guilt into the female's mind, or the person they're trying to control or take advantage of.
literally cannot see what is really happening to us. They can use hidden methods that develop confusion by making their needs seem unreasonable, making the victim feel self-centered, pathologizing or making the victim appear as if they're insane, or ally with someone of influence to daunt the victim. There are warning signs of emotional blackmail in a relationship. If a single person often excuses things that aren't their doing, like the manipulator's outburst, bad day, or negative behaviors. If someone demands only their...
Manipulator's outburst on Gail King. Look at me. Is that camera on me? Are they looking at me? I got a little too excited. That's what happened to R. Kelly.
Way or nothing, even if it is at the expense of the partner. There are warning signs of emotional blackmail in a relationship. If a single person often excuses things that aren't their doing, like the manipulator's outburst, bad day, or negative behaviors. If someone demands only their way or nothing, even if it is at the expense of the partner. It seems to be a one-way street of sacrifice and compliance. Or if someone feels daunted or threatened to obey or comply. When in a dysfunctional cycle of emotional blackmail, the victim may be inclined to apologize, plead, change strategies to meet the other's needs, cry, use reasoning, or give in. Normally, they will find it difficult to defend themselves, resolve the problem, set limits, and communicate with the blackmailer that the conduct is inappropriate. They don't consistently set clear boundaries, indicating what is acceptable for them. Forward and Frazier recognize four
Flawless. What do you mean? Like, do a reading? Like maybe I can find another book and maybe we could read a chapter or two? You know, listen to a chapter or two on your live? Is that what you're saying, Mommy? I don't know how that would work. I'd have to think about how that could happen. Because you would have to be streaming. Well, shoot. You could always get this app. It's called Script. You can go through it without subscribing. Certain things you will be eligible for, certain things you won't. I don't remember exactly what. But you can get samples and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I got to think about how we could do that, baby. Okay?
kinds of blackmailing, each with varying control methods. Punishers. Punishers operate with a need to get their way, despite the feelings or needs of the other person. Their motto is, my way or the highway. Punishers will firmly insist upon promoting control and getting what they want with threats to inflict damage or hurt. Self-punishers. Individuals can make threats of self-harm if the partner doesn't abide by what they really want. Victims. This is the voice of a victim conveying guilt on the partner if they do refrain from doing what's demanded. If they don't comply, there's a recommendation that their suffering will be the other's fault. After all that I've done for you, you're going to let me suffer? Tantalizers.
Yeah,
This can be the most subtle and confusing form of control. There's a pledge of what will be better if they comply. It triggers hope, yet is still linking a threat to the need. Typical in any abuse cycles, it is important to comprehend the progression of emotional blackmail. It generally begins as subtle or implicit remarks and habits. The development can be insidious, so one doesn't recognize its impact until it's gotten serious. A metaphor would be of the frog in boiling water. If you place a frog instantly into boiling water, its impulses will trigger it to leap out because of the immediate strong pain. Even so, if you place a frog in lukewarm water and gradually increase the heat, it doesn't recognize the pain as a danger signal at the same level of heat. The frog becomes desensitized as the water is warming up gradually. The habits and impact of emotional blackmail can be similar. There are 6 progressive steps recognized in emotional blackmail. A need made known from the manipulator. The manipulator will make a clear need of what they really want, tied with a risk. You need to pay my rent or I will leave you. You need to let me move in or I'm going to tell your sister what you said about her. Number 2, resistance from the victim. After the need is determined, the victim may resist or feel the need to avoid the person, since they're not sure how to manage that need. The concerning part of this process is it often is an unsavory, unfavorable, or irrational need placed on the victim. Number 3, pressure from the manipulator. Manipulators of emotional blackmail aren't concerned about pushing too hard. They will continue to get what they really want no matter what it takes. They neglect pain emotions or fear being created. Creating fear can even be the driving force behind the need made. The manipulator may put pressure suggesting that the victim is being ridiculous or irrational themselves. That part of the process can trigger the victim to begin to question their sense of reality, and if they're wrong in feeling concerned about the demand being put on them, they begin to lose their healthy sense of perspective and what their gut is telling them. The manipulator might even turn the situation around to blame the victim or question their motives if they don't at first accept the placed need. Confusion is a big part of the process. Number 4, threatening the victim. This is the part of the process where the manipulator is threatening to do or not to do something to cause distress or pain for the victim. If you don't do this, then I'm going to do this. They create a circumstance where the victim can be responsible for the promised negative outcome if they don't comply. Number 5, victim compliance. The victim gives in, either rapidly or slow, through a process of increasing self-doubt. They comply with the demand of the manipulator, typically triggering emotions of anxiety, guilt, fear, anger, or resentment. And number 6, the manipulator gets their way and subsides temporarily till the next need of what they want turns up. The frequency of these behaviors and propensities vary in all relationships, including emotional blackmail. No matter the consistency of these habits, it has an unfavorable and toxic effect on the relationship and on the victim. Now the cycle is in place and the structure is set for this pattern to continue. In some circumstances, there might appear to be a fine line between indirect communication and manipulation. Emotional blackmail and indirect communication can both have passive-aggressive undertones. The communication ends up being control and blackmail when it's used consistently to manage another individual or persuade them into doing what the requester demands. The victim will typically feel resistance to comply, but does it at the cost of their own well-being.
Wow.
There's also a distinction between setting healthy limits and emotional blackmail. In setting limits, the individual is asserting themselves and communicating what their needs are. Emotional blackmail involves conveying threats that will result in a punishment of the victim if they do not meet the request. Someone taking part in emotional blackmail will demonstrate any or all of the following: telling you that you are crazy for questioning them, controlling what you do, ignoring your issues and pushback, keeping away from taking responsibility, constantly putting blame on others for their habits, offering empty apologies, using fear, obligation, threats, and guilt to get their way, reluctant to compromise, apparently unconcerned about your needs, rationalizing their unreasonable behaviors and demands, frighten you until you do what they want, blame you for something that you did not do so that you feel you have to earn their affection, implicate you of doing something you didn't do, threaten to hurt either you or themselves. The victim. Victims of emotional blackmail normally feel insecure, unvalued, and unworthy. They usually deal with low self-esteem and question their own needs. Victims can demonstrate the following characteristics: searching for approval, people-pleasing, severe compassion and empathy, propensity to take blame, tendency to feel pity for others, trying to avoid conflict, peacekeeping habits, strong sense of responsibility and doing the right thing, fears of abandonment, sensitivity, disposition to customize things, fear of anger, self-doubt, low self-esteem. The effect. The tension of being in a relationship, including emotional blackmail, can take a toll emotionally and physically on the victim. It jeopardizes the victim's sense of stability and self-esteem. It triggers victims to question their own sense of reality. It causes negative and distorted thinking about themselves and their relationship. Victims of emotional blackmail often end up being isolated, experiencing extreme solitude. It affects a total sense of well-being and adds to anxiety, stress, and depression. The blackmailer. Forward notes in this book that are an important takeaway for a victim is that the behavior of an emotional blackmailer feels a little like it is about you, but for the most part, it is not. It typically originates from deep insecurities inside of the blackmailer. Fear and anxiety can come out as rage and blame toward the victim. These propensities usually have to do with what has happened in the past instead of the reality of the present situation. There is no exact prototype of emotional blackmailers, yet they can demonstrate the following characteristics: egotistical propensities, self-indulgent, extreme anger, deep panic, fear, desolation, or rage, fear of abandonment, mentally immature, not in touch with emotions.
That's a good example, Pettyville. Yes, ma'am. That's why I said to you guys when I started this live, listen to what he's telling you and then think about the trial and what you guys heard, okay? Because you can compare notes of things that we have learned between the documentaries we've watched, the interviews we've watched, and the trial that we listened to. This is all exactly R. Kelly's world. He lives in a twilight zone, as what's his name? Tom Arnold, I think it was, or Anthony Navarro. One of those two gentlemen, I don't remember which one, but he said being with R. Kelly is like being in the twilight zone. I think it was Anthony Navarro. I think it was Anthony. Crazy, right? But yet, these supporters don't understand how R. Kelly can have so much control and power. And here it is in your face. And you don't even see it. You know, people like us who we are not privy to any of this knowledge. It's not like we were born with a book that says, okay, well, listen, when you hit 15, 14, 13. Make sure you read this book and watch the signs for these predatorial people, whether it be the lawyer, the doctor, the counselor, the teacher, the churchman, the lady down the block, your best friend's father, the neighbor, the cousin. It can be anybody at any time, anywhere, any place. It doesn't matter. Your status, your power. As long as you can get the authority over this person, you got it. Like that. In an instant. And especially if the person is a child, it's even easier. And I still don't get how people don't understand why R. Kelly was convicted in New York. Well, here's your reason why, guys. Pay attention.
Absence of responsibility, and that they hate to lose. Some of these traits may be close to the surface area and observable, like anger, although much of the insecurities, emotional pain, and fears lie deep within the psychological makeup of the blackmailer. The scientific research on emotional blackmail, in specific, is limited. In one public health research study, scientists checked out character correlations of emotional blackmail in relationships. Matzer et al. They utilized the 5-factor personality model to assess risk aspects for potential victims and individuals in danger for taking part in emotional blackmail. They discovered that neuroticism and agreeableness were risk aspects for handling the role of the victim. The aspects securing against the use of emotional blackmail in close relationships were agreeableness and conscientiousness. Neuroticism is a crucial risk element for taking on the perpetrator of emotional blackmail. Social adaptation and assertiveness can act as protecting aspects against being a victim of emotional blackmail. Data was gathered to inform preventative programs developed to support people and structure healthy relationships. There's plenty of room for additional research to be gathered and leveraged to aid with prevention of emotional abuse and blackmail.
Now remember, none of these girls left with the stuff that they bought. A lot of these girls just took a little bag and left. A couple of clothes. Because everything was in Robert's storage. They wore sweats. And they would share their outfits.
There's somebody else shooting me.
These girls didn't leave with shit when they left R. Kelly. Nothing. Except for the money they were stashing from their allowance. If they were even really getting that.
Yo, try to stay there. I want my gun back. Oh.
All right, we got like 2 more minutes of this chapter.
15 plus examples of emotional blackmail. The emotional blackmailer normally doesn't have any other coping or go-to approaches for how to communicate in a healthy manner. They fall back to stonewalling, slamming doors, threatening, and engaging in other destructive behaviors to get what they want. They usually don't have the tools readily available to comprehend how to convey their needs. So many examples of emotional blackmail happen in romantic relationships. Any gender can participate in emotional blackmail.
Exactly.
Nevertheless, a male-female collaboration is a prototypical example. One circumstance is if a guy in a committed relationship is caught cheating on his partner. Instead of taking ownership and apologizing for his actions, he may twist the story. He might blame his partner for not meeting his needs or being there when he needed her, thus apparently rationalizing or validating his behavior. That can be puzzling for the victim, as she may be inclined to question herself or start believing his claims. She might wonder if she's good enough or could have done more in the relationship.
Yes. You know, Lisa Van Allen.
Chapter 3.
Lisa Van Allen said it best when she said, you know, I didn't know what to do. I felt like, you know, I'm his girlfriend and I'm young, and how am I going to keep this man of this status? I got to do what I got to do if I really want to be with him. So I got no choice but to bend at his will, right? Emotional blackmail. Mm, 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 mm. R. Kelly's going down, y'all. He going down, 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 down. Y'all killing me with this shit, man. Let's continue with the next chapter.
Chapter 3. Common Threats. Other examples of demands and threats in emotional blackmail. If I ever see another man look at you, I will kill him. If you ever stop enjoying me, I'm going to kill myself. I have already discussed this with our pastor, therapist, friends, family, and they agree that you're being unreasonable. I'm taking this holiday with or without you. How can you say you love me and still be friends with them? You have destroyed my life, and now you're trying to stop me from spending cash or take care of myself. Emotional blackmail.
Ah, man, who did that sound like? R. Kelly when he was complaining about the Me Too movement. How can I make money? How can I have a relationship with my kids? I can't do this shit. I can't do this shit no more. Oh, man. Back to Gayle King.
Blackmailers typically try to make the victim feel responsible for their negative actions. It was your fault that I was late for work. If you wouldn't cook in an unhealthy way, I wouldn't be obese. I would have gotten ahead in my career if you had done more in the house. Emotional blackmail might also happen in situations where one person is an addict. They might threaten to take the automobile if the victim doesn't pick them up from the bar. Emotional blackmail can happen in family relationships as well. A clingy mother may attempt to give her kid a guilt trip for not spending enough time with her. She might make comments referencing what good daughters do. It can also take place in relationships. A good friend might request for cash and threaten to end the friendship if they don't comply. A penalizing kind of blackmail can occur. For instance, if a couple is going through a hard divorce, the emotional blackmailer might threaten that if their partner declares divorce, they'll keep the cash or never let them see the kids. Such conduct can leave the victim feeling rage at the effort of being controlled and not knowing how to properly react. Another type of emotional blackmail that's much more sneaky is when we use fear, responsibility, and guilt to hold ourselves captive. We can cause our own fog, which can manage our conduct, even if it's not coming from external sources. If I were a great child, I would visit my mother more frequently. There can be different levels of emotional blackmail, ranging from threats with little effect to threats that can have major effects on life choices or can be unsafe. Here are some additional quick and destructive examples of threats associated with emotional blackmail. If you don't take care of me, I'll end up being in the hospital or on the street or unable to work. You'll never see your kids again. I'll make you suffer. You'll ruin this family. You're not my child anymore. You'll be sorry. I'm cutting you out of my will.
I wonder what R. Kelly's mother said to him on her deathbed. I wonder what she really said to him when he promised her, Mom, I promise you I'm going to behave. I won't do the shit that I'm doing no more. Remember? We were just listening to that on the podcast in Jim the Goddess's book. She took a passage from there and she explained from Solace. Or no, not from Solace. It was from Solace. She took a part from Solace and explaining about R. Kelly's mom. And that how she was on her deathbed. He didn't go to the funeral. He didn't pay for her medical bills. This, that, and the third. But he confessed his sins or something like that. Right? Uh-huh. Let me back up just a little bit so we could rewind on that.
Additional quick and destructive examples of threats associated with emotional blackmail. If you don't take care of me, I'll end up being in the hospital or on the street or unable to work. You'll never see your kids again. I'll make you suffer. You'll ruin this family. You're not my child anymore. You'll be sorry. I'm cutting you out of my will. I'll get sick. I can't make it without you. How to best deal with emotional blackmail. If you or somebody you know is experiencing emotional blackmail in a relationship, it's hard to know where to begin. In her book, Unnoticeable Chains, Overcoming Coercive Control in Your Intimate Relationship, Lisa Aronson Fonts offers a controlling relationship evaluation. Taking an assessment may be a useful way to begin reflecting and determining the abusive behaviors that are occurring. Her book also provides ways to help recognize the controlling habits of all kinds, understand why this harmful pattern takes place, figure out whether you're being threatened and if your partner can change, safeguard yourself and your kids, find the support and resources you really need, do something about it to improve or end your relationship, and regain your liberty and independence. In Forward's book, there's a chapter called It Takes Two. She motivates the victims of emotional blackmail to take some responsibility for their conduct and their previous compliance with the blackmail process. The blackmail process doesn't work efficiently without both parties actively participating. Forward offers this perspective not as a way for victims to beat themselves up or to position blame. Rather, she offers this viewpoint as an empowering approach for victims to recognize what they can change and manage. In the introduction, she specifies, change is the scariest word in the English language. Nobody likes it, almost everybody is terrified of it, and the majority of people, including me, will be exceptionally creative to keep away from it. Our actions may be making us unhappy, but the idea of doing anything differently is even worse. Yet if there is just one thing I know with outright certainty, both personally and professionally, it is this: nothing will change in our lives till we change our own behavior. In order to best deal with emotional blackmail, the victim must bring a new mindset and approach the circumstances in a different way. That will need gaining insights into what's going on in the blackmail dynamics and learning to remove themselves from their extreme feelings. It can be useful for victims to explore what demands are making them feel uncomfortable. In doing so, they can recognize what limits need to be put in place. They should decide what is okay and what is not okay with them in a relationship. Understanding the violent effect of emotional blackmail is also crucial. Valuing how psychological abuse is wearing victims down can confirm their experience of feeling hopeless and not having self-confidence. Change is scary, but doing something different is the only way to get a completely different result. Otherwise, victims are at risk of letting their fears run and possibly destroy their lives. Awareness, insight, and informing ourselves is very important. But change only comes from taking a different course of actions over a prolonged amount of time. Susan Forward asserts that all of us have choices about how to participate in a relationship. We can work out for a healthier relationship, or we can end the relationship. No relationship is worth the cost of psychological and mental well-being. Victims can actually learn to set boundaries and might become shocked what can happen when new limitations are set. The messaging needs to become that the behavior is no longer acceptable. While victims don't feel bold or confident after having actually been mentally mistreated, they can take a much different action. Victims must do something about it to change the course, instead of waiting on the other person to change.
Right.
Victims can self-evaluate throughout the process. When you don't back down and comply with needs connected with threats, how do you feel?
Right.
Strong, empowered, confident, enthusiastic, proud, excited, brave, assertive, reliable, capable.
Yes.
Breaking any behavioral pattern is challenging. Develop a clear vision of what you want to accomplish. Any change will require work, effort, and pain, but this is where growth happens. The only way to know if the limitation and border setting will work is to try it. Forward suggests confronting the manipulator about the habits. What would that be like? You are pushing a relationship to the edge. You aren't taking me seriously when I tell you how unhappy I am. We need to find ways to deal with disputes that don't leave me feeling mentally mistreated, worn, and diminished. I always comply. I'm not ready to live like that anymore. I need to be treated with respect. Let's discuss it. Don't threaten and punish me. I'm not going to tolerate those behaviors any longer. In her book, Forward suggests 3 workouts: an agreement, a power declaration, and a set of self-affirming phrases. Contract. A contract lists some promises you would make to yourself. The contract recognizes the fundamental ground rules for you to follow. Take a bit of time each day to read the agreement out loud. Example of a contract with myself. I, blank, recognize myself as an adult with alternatives and choices, and I commit myself to the process of actively getting emotional blackmail out of my relationships and out of my life. In order to reach that objective, I make the following guarantees. I assure myself that I'm no longer willing to let fear, commitment, and guilt manage my choices. I guarantee myself that I'll learn the strategies in this book and that I'm going to put them into practice in my life. I guarantee myself that if I regress, struggle, or fall into old patterns, I won't use slips as a reason to stop attempting. I recognize that failure is not failure if you use it as a way to learn. I promise to take good care of myself throughout this process. I assure that I'll acknowledge myself for taking positive steps, no matter how little they are. Signature, date. Power statement. Another way to handle emotional blackmail is to develop your own power declaration. Repeating a power declaration can ground you when the pressure shows up by the manipulator. For instance, I'm not actually doing this. I won't do this. This power statement is concise and impactful. It works because it directly counters the belief that moves us into compliance, that we can't stand the pressure. Short, impactful sentences like this are meant to challenge doubts and limiting beliefs. If you begin to think, I can't stand it, that you can't stand to hurt his emotions, hurt him, handle your guilt or anxiety, and so on, change the mantra from, I can't stand it, to, it's hard, but I can do it. This includes a subtle shift to getting comfortable from being uncomfortable. Changing to, I can stand.
That's right, Joy. Do it, girl. Do it. Go home. Like I said, you ain't got to go home, but get the hell out of there. Get out of there. Go reach out to your family members. Please, please, please. You need to get out of this situation, girl. This is not a life for you, honey. This is not a life for you, baby. This is not a life for you. This is not a life for you. This is not what you want, sweetheart. You don't. You're never going to get a baby out of this man. What are you going to do? Don't you want to have grandchildren one day? Don't you really want to get married in a church one day? You want to have your family around enjoying your special day? Don't you want true love? I know you do, baby. Go home. Go home.
Stand it will build your emotional strength so that you don't need to immediately back down. Self-affirming phrases. By pulling back and giving in, you might feel guilt, hurt, shameful, embarrassed, restless, mad, weak, resentful, powerless, scared, afraid, caught, dissatisfied, or stuck. In order to change these feelings, it's necessary to begin with changing your ideas. Develop some self-affirming thought patterns to obtain and repeat, specifically when your negative thinking kicks in. Consider asking yourself if a demand is making you awkward. Let me tell you why. What part of the demand is okay and what's not? Is the other person threatening me? Is the other person considering my feelings? If I comply, what's in it for me? There are several levels of demands. Not a huge deal, minimal impact. Important concerns, including your stability, are at stake. A major problem involving crucial life choices and/or it could be destructive. Request that the blackmailer get mental help to learn new methods. Blackmailers can learn abilities to learn how to work out, communicate, and own their own behavior. First of all, they must take real responsibility for their actions for any change to occur. An objection to own and put it on the other person is a sign of immaturity and lack of well-being and health. Once
R. Kelly, take accountability for the things you have done. Get on your knees and beg for the mercy of the court and the Lord. You need to make these steps if you really truly feel that you can be a changed man one day. Lord have mercy.
blackmailers own the conduct, they can take the next steps to learn the methods.
Own up to your
If they're
shit.
really taking responsibility, they'll show the guts to sit down with the victim and have a conversation about it. In doing so, this will create a much safer environment in the relationship. Safety is the primary component of specifying a healthy or not healthy relationship. Manipulators who take accountability and are willing to be vulnerable show hope for learning and change. What does that sound like from a blackmailer? Can you help me? Tell me how I can review this to you in a way that doesn't make you feel bad. I want to get help. I don't really want my behaviors to make you feel so bad. What's another way I can say this to you? What can I do that will help you feel safe? Where can I learn how to better deal with dispute? I want to improve how to communicate with you. How to stop emotional blackmail in relationships. In a healthy functioning relationship, while tension and disagreements occur, people learn to work toward a solution. Emotional blackmailers are usually not interested in negotiating. They have the tendency to be black and white about their needs and reluctant to compromise. Normally, they rule out options or other viewpoints. They want what they want and nothing else. The majority of people who have been in a relationship with a psychological blackmailer appreciate that there is no thinking when somebody is in this state. The behaviors are unreasonable and the needs are unreasonable. How to stop emotional blackmail in relationships might start with the victim promoting the belief that they aren't worthy of such treatment. Victims have as many rights as they do. As pointed out previously, acquiring insight into their own patterns of behaviors, pleasing, and the tendency to look for approval can help comprehend where to make changes. The victim might have developed these propensities early in life to self-sacrifice, overcompensate for others, and put themselves last. Chapter 4. More about blackmail. Practical ideas on what actions to take during an exchange with a blackmailer can be useful. Consider taking a long pause before you abide by the request. Take a break and think about how you're feeling about the need. Create some distance from the feeling so that you can make a healthy choice based on reasoning rather than the emotional default. Put it on your schedule. It will develop off balance and it can be scary. There will be pressure to return it to the old patterns, so this is very likely to be uncomfortable. Forward suggests tips like repeating a neutral statement to the demand placed, such as, "No thank you." This stops the backward and forward and capitulation of the emotional exchange. You don't really need to wait till you feel strong to show strength. Do it, and then the feelings will follow. Most people typically wait until they feel the nerve, and that time never comes. Just do it, and then you'll feel better. You can't always wait until you feel better first. Forward suggests additional techniques to help stop emotional blackmail. Establish an SOS before responding to a demand. Stop, observe, and strategize. Stop. I need time to think about it. Observe. A person's own responses, ideas, feelings, activities. Strategize. Analyze the demands and the potential impact of complying. Consider what you really need and explore alternative options. Develop effective non-defensive communication. Sharon Allison, 2002, provides helpful guidance on non-defensive communication. Suggestions are not to take the bait from the blackmailer, yet stay on point with what your essential message is. Don't allow yourself to be derailed by their comments, demands, and habits. Stick to the "this is who I am and what I really want." Blackmailers are highly defensive, and their comments often intensify conflicts. Try to keep away from intensifying statements and stick with non-defensive communication like, "I can see that you're upset. I understand that you're disappointed. I'm sorry you're upset. I can understand how you may see it that way. Let's discuss it when you feel calmer." It's essential to keep in mind that victims can't change their partner, only their response. The emotional blackmailer has a foundation in deep layers of their insecurities. The victim's job is to put their welfare and health first. Their energy is best used to change themselves and their method. In addition to changing the conduct patterns throughout these exchanges, victims can do their own psychological healing outside the relationship. For instance, developing abilities to self-regulate, build confidence, and boost assertiveness can be helpful. Victims can explore the following ideas. Learn how to become a removed observer. Healthy detachment is a very good coping mechanism when dealing with dispute or highly charged psychological situations. It includes taking a step back and being an observer of what's going on in the existing circumstances, without being taken away by the feelings at hand. This will enable some self-reflection and questioning, so as to make practical connections between your beliefs, behaviors, and actions. Creating some space between you and the circumstances can enable you to make healthier choices. Forward identifies the need to let go of teasing behaviors. Many people who have a tendency to comply may give up because they don't really want the other person to be mad at them. They really need to rid themselves of the unjust guilt, and that's what happens in emotional blackmail. Expand techniques to deal with your own emotional pain. Find ways to handle your fear, guilt, and sense of obligation. Embrace the pain of the guilt, fear, or anxiety that can come with saying no or developing a new boundary. Continue to develop the thought-stopping strategies to detach from fear and responsibility. Challenge your assumptions of what commitments and expectations are real and what evidence is provided for these claims. Evaluate what part you play in the dysfunctional cycle of emotional blackmail. In order to be fully empowered and able to make a real change, it's necessary to take a look at your own responsibility in the circumstances. This isn't suggesting that you're to blame for the behavior of the other person. Rather, to find parts and habits that you can manage to help yourself navigate through such situations. Take some inventory. Self-reflect on how you may validate your compliance. Here's some examples of negative self-talk that can enhance the pattern of giving in. It's not worth it to deal with his or her anger. Their needs matter more than mine. It's no huge deal to give up. What I really want isn't essential enough. I'll just do it to get them to relax. I'd rather give in than hurt their feelings. I'm afraid if I say no. Practice stopping briefly before giving in to demands in lower stakes circumstances. Practice saying no even when the threats aren't evident. Be firm and stand your ground on limits set. Don't immediately succumb to what the blackmailer wants, specifically if you happen to be being threatened. Seek expert help through counseling, treatment, training, or a support system to help navigate through recovery from a psychological abuse. In the end, it's critical for victims to recall that abuse is not their fault. All people should have to be treated with respect. Emotional blackmail after a split-up. A separation or relationship separation can fuel the fire for emotional blackmailers. The potential for them to act out increasingly rises up during a crisis circumstance, particularly involving a breakup. Throughout this time, victims could be at risk or in danger, since blackmailers can intensify their behaviors. Because they are concentrated on what they want when they want it, they show limited concern or empathy for the strong pain of others. They can become so soaked up in their own rage that they could show signs of panic in their desperation. If emotional blackmail was used throughout the relationship and there is a breakup, there is no longer a direct method for such control techniques. That can cause an emotionally unsteady person to act out much more if their means for control are removed. Manipulators' habits may increase in intensity and in frequency. More extreme threats of self-harm and inducing guilt would be common in a breakup situation. They may also resort to stalking or other kinds of undesirable behaviors in an attempt to reconnect the relationship. While uncommon, taken to an extreme, the X may show obsessive tendencies and could be in danger for bringing the violence to another level. It's important for the victim to remember that they aren't accountable for the X's needs and feelings. It's important to look for protection if the victim is feeling risky. This might include getting professional help to understand how to establish these healthy boundaries. It might also include setting clear physical limits to guarantee there's no contact with the ex-partner. Finding a support system can be handy for people who have been in relationships including emotional blackmail and abuse. The focus post-breakup is best placed on victims learning how to take part in self-care and determining their own personal needs. This has been Dark Psychology, Sadism, Threats, Extortion, and Blackmail. Written by Amanda Grapes. Narrated by Joseph D. Weaver.
And that was the end of that. That was very deep, very interesting, very informative. Hashtag Joy Go Home. Joy Go Home. Go home. Go home. Glenda, if she's really with you, send her home. Do the right thing, man. Do the right thing and send her home. She needs to be with her family. That's who she needs to be with. So, guys, I got one little thing for you guys, and we are out after that. Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you guys for sticking around. And I hope you guys really took a good ear to all that stuff, especially to the people in the back who don't understand what victimization looks like. You know, they have one picture of what a victim should look like, but in reality, it's something else. It's deeper than what you think. So I'm gonna present a video that I found out here on YouTube, and it's going to talk about 10 examples of what gaslighting sounds like. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at this video. All right, I gotta go on mute for this, that's for sure. Okay, let me go back here. I gotta go on mute. Okay, so I'm doing my disclaimer. This is from Psychology. What was the channel again? Sorry. Psychology Element. And they talk about 10 examples of what gaslighting sounds like. Shout out to you guys. Thank you so much. I'm using your commentary to share as a teaching tool for elements of psychology when dealing with victims. Okay, so I'm going to go on mute and then I'm going to play the video, okay?
Has somebody ever said anything to you that brought you to a halt and caused you to doubt your own sanity? Did it cause you to have doubts about your memories and your understanding of reality? If so, there is a good chance that you have been the victim of gaslighting. The term gaslighting is often used by the media these days. The word is derived from Patrick Hamilton's 1939 stage drama, Gaslight, in which a husband mentally manipulates his wife. Gaslighting is a type of emotional abuse in which the victim is led to doubt his or her own memory of the truth, memory, or perspective. It is one of the most pernicious forms of maltreatment. It takes direct aim at a person's sense of self-confidence, gradually eroding it until they begin to doubt if everything they perceive, think, and feel is genuine or a creation of their mind. Gaslighting also erodes an individual's capacity and motivation to confront their abuser, since each time they try, the goalposts are shifted even further to turn their argument against them. Eventually, dread and uncertainty render the victim so helpless that they are easily led into doing anything the offender demands. They relinquish all resistance and become figurative pawns of their manipulators. Here are 10 examples of what gaslighting sounds like. Make sure to watch until the end to arm yourself with an inner gaslighting detector. Number 10. It is all your fault that I do the things I do. When a gaslighter is confronted with their actions, they may make statements similar to this. It's a fairly normal reaction for them to put you on the spot and for you to second guess your behavior. They accuse you of wrongdoing without accepting responsibility for their own actions. You could even apologize for things that aren't your fault in order to reach an agreement with them. One sign that you may be getting gaslighted is if you always feel like you are messing up even though you're trying really hard to do things right. Your gaslighter wants you to feel like that because they want you to feel like they are doing you a favor just being with you. This sort of emotional abuse may occur in any relationship, but is most prevalent in romantic relationships. The abuser uses gaslighting to maintain control over the relationship and to cause their victim to doubt their own sanity. Gaslighting's effects may make it even more difficult for the victim to leave an abusive relationship, since they may be unaware that it's occurring. Number 9, you are too sensitive. At times, being gaslighted may be perplexing, and you may begin to wonder whether you are the one who is overreacting. The abuser will maintain that you are fabricating a situation out of thin air. This will cause you to doubt your own viewpoint and emotionally shut down. Their goal is to make you feel foolish for even attempting to defend yourself and to make you doubt your own sense of self. They terminate the conversation and accuse you of being too emotional to deal with it. There is a good chance that you are being gaslighted if you feel like you can never talk about your problems in your relationship without your significant other accusing you of being oversensitive. Number 8, what did I do to you? If someone asks you this, they may really be unaware of their actions. However, when someone is gaslighting you, they are aware that they have done something to harm you and are feigning ignorance. By defensively presenting this issue to you, they are denying the influence they had on you and compelling you to examine it. The person who gaslights never admits to what they have done. Despite the fact that they are well aware of it, they want you to feel bad for their own actions. You may have had nothing to do with whatever went wrong or caused you pain, yet they'll find a way to make you feel responsible. This is a very typical example of gaslighting. Number 7, the problem is not with everyone. The problem is with you. The abuser employs these sort of statements to derail the discussion and shift responsibility to the victim. This is sometimes referred to as victim blaming, in which the individual gaslighting makes remarks that make the other person believe they are the problem, even if they have been the victim of bullying or abuse. This will cause you to mistrust your abilities. Without defending or apologizing for their own harmful actions, a gaslighter will influence you into thinking this way. This practice of blaming one's significant other for everything enables them to elevate their viewpoint above everything else. Number 6. I have no memory of saying it. I believe you made that up. This is a standard sentence that a gaslighter will use to purposefully get you to doubt your experience, conduct, and ideas in order to deflect attention away from them. Even if they recall everything, they will never admit it. They will instead blame your nervousness and restlessness, or they will behave as if they do not exist. When a gaslighter is confronted about their behavior, they often claim innocence and blame you for the situation. They use this as a justification for their own bad conduct when, in reality, they should accept responsibility for their own actions rather than blaming you. Enjoying the video so far? Then don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insightful psychology videos like this one. You'll only get smarter, and it's free. Number 5, you're insane, and others believe the same thing. Along with instilling doubt in their victims, gaslighters may cause their victims to question their own sanity. Additionally, the gaslighter may attempt to persuade the victim's relatives and friends that they are mentally unwell in order to further undermine any charges made by the victim. This reduces the possibility that the victim's allegations will be believed and isolates them from the services necessary to exit an abusive relationship. This is most prevalent in romantic interactions between men and women. When the guy is gaslighting the woman, this may be because society often portrays women as more illogical and in less control of their emotions than males. Number 4, I'm sorry you feel that way. When someone has harmed you and apologizes in this manner, it is not a genuine apology. Rather than that, it's a strategy to make you feel as if you're the problem. They express regret that you feel the way you do rather than accepting responsibility for what they have done or how they have made you feel. This comment may seem to be an admission of guilt, but it is not. This is how an abuser may absolve himself of guilt and place blame on the victim. This kind of apology makes the victim doubt their own judgment and makes them wonder whether they really did overreact. This might result in the victim accepting the abuser's version of events. Number 3, it is all your fault. Individuals who gaslight will absolve themselves of any accountability for their conduct. Rather than accepting responsibility, they will accuse people directly. This may be a recitative loop in which you are made to feel responsible for something that is not your fault. You may even choose to apologize for things that are not your fault in order to reconcile with them. Accepting your guilt and apologizing will become easier after a while, since you will be too exhausted to argue with them. You just want the situation to be over. They will damage your self-esteem without regard for consequences, causing victims to suffer even more. Number 2, nobody except me will ever love you. Isolating the victim from friends and family is a characteristic of all forms of domestic violence, and gaslighting is one method for doing so. A person's loved ones are those who may serve as a reality check, proving the abuser wrong, and so the gaslighter may attempt to remove them in order to distort reality. An example of gaslighting is when a boyfriend bans his girlfriend from attending events such as a ladies' night out, claiming that her friends despise him and gossip about him behind her back. He may also take her phone and delete emails and calls from her pals as proof that they don't care about her at all and that he is the only one who genuinely loves her. They don't want to be your main connection. They want to be your sole relationship. Number 1, it's not that big of a deal. Gaslighters have a propensity to diminish the effect something has on you. They make you feel as if you're exaggerating something while you're perfectly entitled to discuss issues that are upsetting you and express yourself freely. Once you've established that your significant other would respond in a specific manner, you'll lose your confidence in discussing your emotions and ideas with them, and you'll gradually become more alienated. They'll accuse you of being defensive, irrational, or too sensitive. Gaslighters have a propensity to direct the discussion toward you, regardless of the scenario, and to portray you as the aggressor by accusing you of being defensive. Keep in mind that you may have heard or said these things before, but this does not always imply that you have been gaslighted or are a gaslighter. Gaslighting is deliberate, and the gaslighter is well aware of what they are saying and doing. We strongly urge you to seek assistance and counseling if you believe you are a victim. Gaslighting is not limited to romantic relationships. It may occur inside a family or even at your place of work. And if you like this video, then check out these related videos to see more. And make sure to like this video to let the algorithm know you'd like to see more videos like these.
I just dropped the video link in the chat. Again, this is from Psychology Elements. That's a great channel too. They got a lot of great stuff on there. If you guys are, into that stuff, go check their channel out. Subscribe to their channel. Give them a thumbs up on the video. Thank you so much, guys. And Diva Divine Light is out. So make sure you guys do. You know what to do. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed to the channel. Put the notification on all. Hit that little bell. Okay, please make sure you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to subscribe. You're enjoying the content. And if you are on the replay, make sure you leave comments below. Make sure they're respectful. They will stay. If not, they will get deleted. And that's just what it is. And if you guys are down, you can join my membership for $1.99 a month. I have 3 different tiers there. I give exclusive content over there. And Diva Divine Light is out, guys. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, lend me your ears and your eyes.